Good morning. My name is Stuart Richner, President of Richner Communications and publisher of Herald Community Newspapers. Welcome to the third installment of Herald Inside LI, a weekly webinar series produced by Richner Live that brings together leaders from the business, government, and nonprofit sectors to address your most important issues and to answer your unfiltered questions. Today, we explore Long Island's housing market in the face of COVID-19. With work from home being the new norm for the foreseeable future, and with many top attractions and urban centers still operating with limited capacity, the question for many Long Island homeowners is now the time to buy or to sell? To help us answer the question, we are joined by some of the top residential real estate minds on Long Island. Stephen Dubb, Principal, the Beechwood Organization. Brian Karp, Real Estate Agent, Coach Realtors. Annie Meneses, Associate Broker, Signature Premier Properties. Joseph Milizio, Managing Partner, Vishnick McGovern Milizio. Deirdre O'Connell, Chief Executive Officer, Daniel Gale Sotheby's International Realty. Welcome. Thank you all for lending your time and expertise to our audience today. I also want to thank our sponsor, Vishnick McGovern Milizio, LLP, for making this event possible. Our moderator for the next hour will be Sky Ostreicher. At any time, you can submit a question to Sky and our panelists by using the Zoom Q&A button on your screen. Last but not least, we want to know what issues are most important to you and your family so that we can be sure to tailor future Herald Inside LI webinars to your interests and needs. Please email us at inside@liherald.com. That's inside@liherald.com with your suggestions. And now I will turn it over to Sky and our esteemed panel. Sky?
Thank you, Stuart, and good morning, everyone on the panel and to everyone watching. And as Stuart alluded to, we're in a weird time and everyone's adjusting to the new normal. And we've seen in the news that there are floods of people leaving New York City and they're heading to the suburbs. There's no need to be in the city if you don't have to go into your office. Then there are families on Long Island who are choosing to move further east because they don't need to commute or they just want to have more land and more space to move around. There are also people who haven't intended on selling their homes, but because there are bidding wars and it's such a seller's market, people are receiving offers over asking price. So they're selling their homes and then they're downsizing into a residential lifestyle community. So we'll hear from different people on this panel who have those different expertises to let us know what's going on in the field. And I want to reintroduce the panel with a little more flavor to give you an idea of who's here. And we have Stephen Dubb, who is the principal of the Beechwood Organization, Long Island's largest home builder and developer of residential lifestyle communities. Brian Karp from Coach Realtors is named one of Long Island's top brokers, and he carries 120 listings with him at any given time, and he services the whole island. And Annie Meneses also services the whole island from Signature Premier Properties, Long Island's fastest growing real estate firm. Joe Milizio he's an attorney and partner at Vishnick McGovern Milizio. And he's an attorney, so he'll talk about all the different transactions that go on and when you need to call your attorney during this process. And Deirdre O'Connell, the CEO of Daniel Gale Sotheby's International Real Estate. It's a $3.5 billion organization with 27 offices across Long Island and Queens. And I'd like to kick off the conversation with you, Deirdre, overseeing 950 sales associates. It's a hot market, it's a seller's market, and how long do you think this will last? That's what everyone wants to know.
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball and I could give you the exact date and we could all time this very nicely, but as we all know, we cannot predict for sure. What we can do is look at the data that suggests that we have a sustainable real estate market right now because interest rates are low and people continue to assess and reassess their present living situation, whether they're presently in the city and wanting to commit to out here. There is also a a large number of people that have moved to rentals. And those people are going to spend these next few months determining whether or not Long Island is their home long-term, or if this is just a short move. So there is still pent-up demand for housing. I believe that we are going to continue to see moving in. And of course, our millennials are choosing not to continue their life in the city, and they are moving here in huge record numbers right now and purchasing homes. The biggest obstacle we have right now is supply. We don't have enough homes to satisfy the need of the buying population. And that's across the board. That goes from northwestern Queens, where we have offices, all the way out to Shelter Island. We don't have enough homes to satisfy the needs of the buyers. And that's creating the bidding wars that you refer to. And so I think that as long as we have this type of demand, we're still going to have a very strong market. I do want to put a caveat in there, and I'm sure my colleagues in real estate and at Coach and at Signature will agree. While we are seeing bidding wars and we're seeing things go over asking, they're not going into that huge aspirational price point. People still will pay market value and slightly over for homes that are in beautiful condition, but they're not going to go aspirational. So this is not a moment to overprice a home just because. So.
Do you think which market is hotter, the Garden City market or Suffolk County market?
You know, they're, in my mind, they're distinct. They're both quite hot. Garden City's price point's a bit higher, whereas as you head out into Western Suffolk, you can get more value maybe for your money. And I think people are now realizing that they don't need to necessarily be on these train lines that get them into the city, lickety split. They can maybe at this time choose to be a little further away and get more value for their dollar and more home, because they're choosing to live in their homes now, as opposed to just having a place to sleep in their homes and having life outside the home. So we are seeing the Suffolk County market moving quickly as well. And it definitely has more variety in price point.
And Suffolk, these are some questions that have come in from people who are watching already, so I'm going to incorporate those into the conversation. But I went to a press conference in Suffolk County where Steve Ballone talked about all the families who are staying in their Hamptons houses. And someone asked, do you expect that the sellers market in the Hamptons will slow or reverse in the winter, or will it remain hot? And I know, Deirdre, you deal in the Hamptons, and Stephen as well, and Brian and Annie, so please.
I don't want to dominate everything. I think that what we do know is that people are choosing to stay this winter in the Hamptons. Many of them are renting. Many of them have secondary homes, and the question of whether or not they choose to stay long term. But the Hamptons, like the rest of Long Island, is not a lack of supply. So I think that if we don't have supply, we can't keep the market churning. So without supply, it's going to level off a little bit. But the future is hard to predict.
Yeah, I agree with Deirdre. Everything that I've seen in the Hamptons points to a hot market for the next several months, at least until there's a vaccine and it's safe for people to go back into the city. And I think that's going to be a while. I think that you've got families who rented in the Hamptons who've decided now's the time to buy. The pandemic has shown them that it's good to have a second base outside of New York. And I've seen, from everything we've seen in our communities in the Hamptons, and from talking to friends who live and rent out here, everybody plans to be out here for the foreseeable future. So I see it lasting for at least the next year or two.
I'm going to just add one other thought to that, is that a lot of the people that are choosing the Hamptons they're shifting it, right? They're making their primary home in the Hamptons and downsizing in Manhattan, and maybe having that pied-à-terre in the city where if they need to pop into the office maybe twice in a week, they have a place to, hang their hat, but they want their life out east.
I'm actually also, I'm sorry. There was actually, I was mentioning this morning that there was actually some new statistics that came up for the month of August. Houses in Manhattan have fallen by 1/3, and then contracts in the Hamptons have actually doubled in the month of August. So that's a clear indication that I think we're all in agreement here that the housing industry over there in the Hamptons is getting pretty hot.
Yeah,
I'd like to pretend that I do have a crystal ball. I'm the nerd that's up at 4 in the morning watching these numbers.
Yes.
It is probably the best sellers market that I've seen in many, many decades, but we don't have an unlimited time for this. The opportunity is now, the opportunity is in front of us. It will probably run another 6 months. The election is going to play a huge, tremendous piece of this. Real estate markets can't just run forever. And we're at the tail end of a 10 to 12 year cycle. And it's going to have a shift. But you're having a mass exit out of Manhattan. You're having a mass exit from the boroughs. So it's, as all of my panelists said, it's a supply and demand game. And basically what's happening is right now, we don't have enough supply and we have a huge amount of demand. And what basically is happening is what happened in 2003 and 2004. 2003, 2004, the banks created more buyers. Today, the pandemic has created more buyers. People who were never going to come out to the suburbs. They were never going to come out to Nassau. They were never going to come out to Suffolk County. And they're pushing themselves out. When I was a kid, there was a game that I was obsessed with that used to go to the arcades. And you put a quarter in the top of the machine and it would come all the way down. And there would be these shelves filled with quarters. And they'd be pushing off more quarters and dropping to the next level. Well, that's what's happening. People are coming from Manhattan. They're going to the boroughs. Boroughs is coming to Nassau, and Nassau is coming to Suffolk County. And I'm even seeing people who are getting caught up with all of this because the newspapers and the broadcasting and the news outlets are saying it's the craziest seller's market ever. And I'm having clients reach out to me and say, Bri, if you can get me that certain number, if you can get me that number, we're going to grab it. And then we're going to go. And we might even just rent for the next year or two to protect our asset in case there is a market pullback.
There's actually buyers too that I'm running into this situation where there's buyers asking themselves, you know, should we sit down and wait like another 3 or 4, or like Brian said, a few more months just to see what happens, because the demand is so high that buyers are now considering, is it okay for us to just hold up a little bit and then take advantage of, you know, maybe a little bit more supply in the future, because buyers are just, they want to take advantage of the great interest rates that are happening now, but they're so, you know, sometimes they are very, I would say they get, you know, a little bit annoyed at the fact that there's not, and they have to, you know, get involved in these bidding wars, coming in 30 and 40 and 50,000 over asking price just to get an accepted offer. So buyers are also considering, that's what I'm running into, considering, should we wait a little bit? So I actually agree with Brian, you know, I wish we all had a little crystal ball to see what's going to happen in the future.
Now, a question for you two agents on the ground. How do you get listings? How is it, Brian, you have 120 listings. How do you get these listings? What makes you a good agent to be able to get these listings?
Sure. So listen, thank you. And I appreciate the compliment, but you need to choose a local guru, a local expert. And that's what I am in my neighborhoods. So that's what's very, very important, because this market is moving so quickly. This market is changing so quickly. So for example, I'm sitting with my clients, we're appraising the house. We look at old data. That's data that's 6 months ago. That data is actually worthless right now. Correct. Because the market is moving so quickly up. So the nice thing is when you have a local person like me and my colleagues, someone who really knows this market, who's watching the numbers, I have such a huge inventory. Right now I'm carrying, like you said, 120, 150 active listings. So every day you can call me and say, Bri, what's the market doing today? And I can see it across the board from a mobile home of $50,000 to Oldfield at just over $2 million. So I really get a good landscape of what's cooking. But I'll give you an example. I met with a client in Esconsett. We appraised the house. It was a $499 house on paper, looking at the similar homes that traded in the last 6 months. But I know, because of the other inventory I have out there, that $500,000 number is not even valid. And it's probably worth 530, 540, which is almost 10% higher, because the market's moving so quickly. So I think the key for agents that were how to get more listings, you just got to be out there. You got to be the market expert to be able to really educate. I'm just an advisor. Just like our Joseph is the attorney, and when they need to structure a deal, that's who they're going to speak to. I am your real estate advisor, and that's why a lot of people hire me, because they want the expert and they want someone who's totally obsessed with this game.
Annie, what are your thoughts on this?
I actually agree with Brian. You have to stay on top of the market. You have to see what's under contract, what's closing. You know, I actually get on the phone with the listing agents and say, what's going on? What are you in contract for? How many offers? I've spoken to agents that, you know, they had 40, 50 offers on one property. So yes, you have to stay on top of the numbers constantly and see what's going on so that you know how to advise your sellers and your, you know, your clients and your customers. You have to really, really, really be able to follow up and stay on top of it. That's what makes you a good agent in today's market.
And I just want to add one little thing to everything that you're both saying, because I totally agree. Agents have to be local experts. They have to be advisors to their buyers and sellers. But an interesting statistic is that 89% of the buyers utilize an agent when they purchase a home. And of that, 90% of them, after they close on the home, say they would use that agent again. They believed in them. The other very interesting thing, though, about that 89% that use an agent, that's up from 2001 when only 69% of people used an agent, which I find fascinating because there's so much more information regarding properties online today than there was in 2001. And yet they still need an expert today more than they ever needed in the past. But of that 90% who said they would definitely use their agent again, in reality, more like 27% really do. And that's because agents lose touch. So I think that today, with so little inventory, this is a moment for agents to really get back in touch with their prior clients and buyers, because they need to be brought up to date on what's going on in the market. They need to hear the reality in their local market, because what we read in the papers is reflects the national market. Our local markets are completely different sometimes than the national market. And to get that and take that and use that opportunity to get back in touch is how you're going to really shake the trees and get the listing opportunities that we so desperately need in the market right now. We actually teach that in our company. We call it ninja learning, and we teach our agents to be good ninjas. It's not about broadcasting out how great you are. It's about really staying in touch and being that advisor to a person on that one-on-one level.
Stephen, how does it work in your industry within the lifestyle community space? Are you seeing that a lot of people are coming and buying, or I know that a lot of agents are showing houses on Zoom. Is that something that you're offering as well?
So we're doing most of our showings by private appointment. So for now, the days of just show up at the sales office and, you know, if you happen to run into 10 other people who are in the sales office at the same time looking for a house, then that's no problem. Those days are over. So we try to keep people separate and safe. But an interesting statistic I can give you is we were basically shut down in terms of sales for almost 3 months this year. We really weren't allowed to sell. And for the first, you know, for most of March and most of April, a lot of people were more worried about their safety than they were about buying a new house. But we've more than caught up with where we were at this point last year in the same communities that we're selling. And we caught up just over the last couple of months. And I think that's a testament to how much demand there is for people who are moving out of the city who want a home on Long Island. And so we've seen the same effects that all of the brokers on this panel are talking about. What's interesting for us is we build new housing and we mostly build retirement lifestyle communities, but we also build communities. We have one in East Meadow that's non-age restricted. It's 48 homes. We just started selling last week. And we are getting a lot of buyers who are moving out of, young millennial buyers who are buying their first home, who are moving out of the city there. But because we're building new housing and most of it won't be ready for at least 6 months after you sign a contract, most of the buyers that we're seeing are Long Island residents who want to move into our communities but need to sell their home in order to buy their house from us. And so they're now walking in greater numbers with a contract in their hand saying, I finally sold my house. What do you have? I'm ready to buy. So we're really seeing mostly the second order effects of it, but we're definitely seeing the effects of this migration out of New York. Second thing I'll say to Deirdre's point is she talked about people who are renting on Long Island before deciding whether or not they want to buy. And we have a luxury apartment building in Westbury called the Vanderbilt. It's about as close as you're going to get to a luxury New York City rental apartment building. And we've been flooded with people coming out of New York who are unsure whether they want to live here permanently, but want to try living on Long Island. And so we've got a lot of renters who I expect are going to enjoy suburban lifestyle and end up looking to buy out here.
So you're seeing a lot of renters.
Seeing a lot of renters. Our rental communities and rental buildings have been really, really strong. Both the Vanderbilt in Westbury and our project Arvin by the Sea in the Rockaways, which is technically in Queens, but it's right next to the beach. And so we're seeing a lot of people move out of core New York City areas, out of Manhattan, out of downtown Brooklyn, out of Williamsburg, who want to live in a building that has more space around it. And so it's been really, really strong for us. So yeah, on the rental side and on the sales side, we're totally seeing the same things that you guys are seeing on the resale market.
When we talk about this hot market, I want to bring Joe into the conversation, because with all these transactions, you need to call a real estate attorney to be part of these deals. So Joe, what are you seeing? I know you mentioned it's a disadvantage in your office because you're so swamped with all these different transactions.
Well, I'll never say it's a disadvantage, Guy. We always like to work with our clients on real estate transactions because, quite honestly, the purchase or sale of a home, but more the purchase, is probably in our client's mind the largest and most important transaction that they will consult us for, regardless of whether or not they might have business interests or estate planning interests or whatever their other legal needs might be. When somebody is buying a home, that is their personal, private, legal proceeding, for lack of a better term, and they want to know that you're there for them.
So Brian and Annie, with these different closings and everything you're seeing moving so quickly, and Deirdre too, do you bring a real estate, do you advise your clients to bring in an attorney early in the process because everything's happening so quickly?
Biggest thing that I could say to my clients is you have to hire a real estate attorney. Do not hire a litigation attorney. Do not hire a divorce attorney. You want somebody who is knowledgeable about today's market and what is okay and what is not okay. And that's the biggest thing I see when my clients retain the family attorney who doesn't do real estate 24/7 and he's in the court system all day. Because in this hot seller's market, it's speed. And as soon as you have an accepted offer, you need to get your inspection done lightning fast. And as soon as you do that, you need to have a good attorney like Joseph, who's reviewing the contracts, knows what COs are needed, what COs aren't needed. You got to get in there, you got to sign, you got to wire your money, because in this market, it's so competitive. The person who acts quickly gets the deal. So you have to have a real estate attorney, and all they do is real estate.
And that's exactly why I tell my clients to contact me as soon as possible. Because as Brian mentioned, there are all sorts of issues that come up, and more often than not, issues do in fact arise during the contract period that could slow things down, and it's a chain reaction. So if a seller has an issue that needs to be taken care of during the pre-closing time period, that could delay the closing, which would delay their buyer's sale, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if we tackle any open problems before a buyer is even found, we can work through things. And Brian mentioned C of O issues. There are always C of O issues that are outstanding that we need to check on to make sure that the client does in fact have a property that can be sold without any further administrative tasks being undertaken with municipalities and things along those lines. I often have clients that tell me, my house is fine, I've not done anything to it, and all of the C of Os were in place when I bought it, and then come down the line, there's that inevitable deck or small porch addition or whatever it might be that was added by a prior owner of the home that my client, who is the current owner, didn't even know about, and for some reason it was missed when they purchased. And now it's a problem, and they don't always see that it's their problem because they bought the house like that, but nevertheless, it is their problem. So those are the types of things that we have to take care of. I'm also seeing a lot of what we refer to as out of possession issue. And that could be something as simple as a fence, or what I'm dealing with this morning, a gravel driveway from a neighbor where part of the gravel is actually on the property that's being sold, or as I said, a fence that might be off the property boundary. It seems that fence installers these days do not use surveys to put fences up, because I don't think I've had a transaction in the last year that there wasn't some kind of a fence problem. And that would entail having the owner of the fence, the neighboring property owner, sign an affidavit indicating that they're making no claim to the property, which might be on their side of the fence. That could hold things up further. So we want to make sure all of those issues are handled to the best extent possible. And as Brian said, if we find out about them during the contract period, that we do everything necessary to work with the broker, to work with the title company, to make sure that those issues are taken care of as expeditiously as possible.
I think that you make a really great point, Joseph, because I think it's the team. I think that what a buyer needs is they need a team. They need their local real estate advisor, their local real estate expert. They need their local real estate attorney. There are real estate attorneys that work out of Manhattan or Westchester that might be someone's brother or aunt or uncle. They don't understand our municipalities. They don't understand our local ways of doing things. So to have a local attorney makes a huge difference, and a local attorney that uses a good title company that knows how to maneuver through all of the different municipalities that have all different types of rules and regs is also extremely important. And of course, you also need the banking arm. You need to make sure that you're working with a bank or a mortgage broker that is part of the team. It has to all work together. And that's how you get the best protection for your buyer. That's how that buyer, especially in a market that we have right now that is so hot and so, you know, you can get the accepted offer, but never get the deal because you don't have the right team to get you to the end. So
that's true. And we don't have any mortgage brokers on the panel today, but I've been seeing over the last 5 or 6 months, obviously, processing taking that much longer. Confirmation of clear to close taking that much longer by lenders. So you do, Deirdre, need that team, and a very important part of that team is the mortgage lender as well.
I would absolutely agree. There's also a big delay in receiving appraisal reports. You know, that's a big issue now because I guess the amount of refinances and purchases that are taking place right now, appraisers are overloaded. So I agree with my panel members here that we do need a team of professionals to support each other so that we can actually be able to give the necessary advice to buyers. You know, what kind of inspections should you do first? How quickly should you do it? Because in today's market, you don't have an accepted offer until your contracts are fully executed. And that means buyer and seller both sign the contract. So a buyer can spend money on a home inspection, sign a contract, and get outbidded. So that's, I agree, it's the team of professionals that you have with you is very, very important.
And you also sort of have to educate your client on the buy side also. Absolutely. I'm a firm believer that with all these home improvement shows and sales shows that people are stuck home watching, they firmly believe that every house has to be in pristine condition. But that's not necessarily the case. A house is priced according to its condition, hopefully. And hopefully buyers can be made to understand that the price might be such that they can be incentivized to do some of the renovations that they think are necessary after the closing.
So someone asked if they're better off fixing up their house or selling it as is right now.
So I'm a big fan of telling my clients, do not put any major money in. And the reason why is that if I tell you to redo a bathroom and spend $15,000, I want you to be able to double that money at the closing table. It doesn't make sense to hand Brian 15 grand and at the closing table, you break even on that. So I'm a big fan. As long as you don't have water pouring down in the kitchen, just sell it the way it is. The next person may not like what me and you choose. And in today's market, it's all about time. So you got to take advantage of this market. It's not going to be here forever. So the quicker you can get to market and get rocking and rolling, the better chance you have to, you know, scoop up as much equity as possible. So I would say do basically nothing.
I think the most common, I'm sorry.
I don't think that maybe you necessarily have to do a bathroom or a kitchen, But I really, really firmly believe that you have to do something if it's a little sad. I mean, you need to maybe paint the cabinets in the kitchen, maybe put a new counter in the bathroom if that'll make a difference, maybe change out at least fresh paint, and sometimes fresh paint and do the floors, and you can make a huge difference in a selling price. And enthusiasm for a house, because it's enthusiasm and passion that drive the price. Sometimes it's not necessarily every single update, but you want people to come in and feel that the house has been well maintained, well taken care of, and they say, you know, I can do the bathroom, but I know this house has been taken care of.
Now, Deirdre, in this type of market, what percent commission should people expect to pay? Should they expect to pay more to the broker in this time?
Well, certainly commissions are things that is a topic that is always negotiable. There's no set commission. I believe, though, that you get what you pay for. And if you want a true real estate professional who does this day in and day out, you're going to pay a little bit more than if you just have someone that's going to be basically a listing service for you and gets you on MLS. Well, then maybe you'll pay less. But it's definitely a negotiable price. But as with anything, the better the quality and the better the service, and the better quality buyers that you're going to attract comes usually with a slightly higher price tag.
And I just want to echo what Brian said, because I thought he made a really, really great point, and Joseph too. I can tell you from our experience, we sell several hundred homes a year across Long Island. And when buyers come to the table with an attorney who has real estate experience, the process is so much better for both sides and so much faster. When they go to an attorney who's a friend, but who doesn't normally practice real estate, you end up negotiating for a longer period of time. It's more painful. The attorney is not familiar with the issues that they should really be focused on. And so you end up educating or arguing over things that are unnecessary. So for prospective buyers who are watching, go to a real estate attorney, even if you've got a friend who says that they can handle it, but they practice another type of law. Real estate attorneys really will help make the process much better and better protect your interests, because they know what you care about. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that everything that Joseph mentioned about legacy CO issues, a fence maybe being over a property line, a driveway maybe not being on the property, a dormer that was added but never permitted, you don't get that stuff with new construction. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to put communities where I can promise you won't have to deal with any of those issues. Although you'll probably still want to hire Joseph to represent you. And the other point I want to make that I think we haven't covered yet is that the strength in the market really seems to be across a wide swath of price points. So Beechwood has communities. We're selling 10 communities right now, starting from up in Saratoga, actually, where we're also seeing people fleeing New York City, but who want to be upstate instead of out on Long Island, to the Rockaways, to East Meadow, to Plainview, Smithtown, Yaphank, and Southampton Village. And the price point goes from the low 200,000s up to $4.5 million. So we're really covering the spectrum. Most of what we do is in the $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 range, but the strength is everywhere. And our pace of sales is pretty much the same everywhere. So I think it's really interesting. You know, in most good markets, you see some areas do better than others, and I'm sure that's true here. But broadly speaking, people seem to be interested in pretty much every market and every price point. So this is really a wide swath push, as opposed to just being focused on entry-level housing or on luxury housing. And I think that's unique about this market compared with others.
Is that what you're seeing as well, Deirdre, across your list?
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, it's exciting because there isn't a pocket that's suffering, really. We're seeing entry-level price points being pushed. We're seeing areas like in the Brookvilles, where we had houses on large properties that really for the past 10 years were so hard to sell, and they now have a market that really wasn't there before. And as you head out towards the east, it's the same. And we are very well represented on the North Fork and Shelter Island, and those markets are on fire. So it's totally across the board. And interesting because you look at Queens as being part of the boroughs of New York City, and yet the single family properties in the north western part of Queens are doing really, really well too. So people are just, I think it's just a total reevaluation of your life and what you want. And housing isn't just about a place to sleep anymore. It's about a place to live. And we really haven't lived this way in 20 plus years. Our lives have been outside the home. And that's I think the game changer. And then you just add on the low interest rates and it makes doing it more, more affordable.
You know, it's interesting.
I don't want the price point.
Right.
The pandemic started this migration out of New York City. Interest rates certainly helped to push people to buy. But what may keep it going in the longer term is what actually happens in New York City. We're all on Long Island reading and watching the news and hearing about rising crime and maybe feeling like it's less safe to go into New York than before. Also reading about the financial crisis that seems to be heading New York City's way. And if the city has to cut budgets, you may see a decline that takes several years to turn around. So COVID may be over in a couple of months or a year or 2 years at the latest, I think. But the state of New York City and whether the city can get it together and reverse some of these negative trends or not will probably have a longer term effect on the strength of the housing market in Long Island and the length of this hot market, I think, than even COVID will.
Mm-hmm. A question for Brian, with covering such a broad area on Long Island and taking these trends into consideration, how can you specialize in a specific area and know what that neighborhood can offer?
Yeah, you have to be the local expert. That is the biggest thing. And there's areas that I serve inside and out and areas that I literally watch every single day. And when I'm meeting with people, the big thing is to really look at the amount of homes that are on the market, because comps, they don't even exist. Comps, a comp is a similar home that is traded in a certain time period, but the comps don't exist anymore. And those buyers don't exist anymore. So it's very important to investigate the other active homes in the market when you're about to hit the market, because that really gives you a great sense of what's going on in that neighborhood. And every neighborhood's different, from a Smithtown, a St. James, a Hauppauge, a Comac, a Ronkonkoma. Each one's different. Each one's had different amounts of inventory. And that really what drives this market. Listen, it's such an exciting time because we have so many people who are saying, all right, Bri, I want to get into the market. I want to buy something because the interest rates are unbelievable. This is like free money. Inflation is higher than what it is right now. And that's going to keep going. The rates are going to stay low for the rest of this year because, the president has to keep the rates low to keep the economy going through the election. So your interest rates are going to be good now. Great time to refinance, great time to buy. We just need more inventory for every market. And that's going to come. More and more people are going to feel more comfortable putting their home on the market. You have to remember, like Stephen said, real estate, we lost 90 days. So there was 90 days where nobody really put their home on the market and no buyers really went through the houses. So we have a lack of supply for those last 90 days that we're just needing to catch up with. I could say personally for myself, July, I put 25 houses on the market. August, I put 30 on the market. So people are starting to raise their hands and say, all right, I feel more comfortable with people coming in the house, and either I'm going to sell and exit off Long Island, or I'm going to sell, I'm going to rent, or I'm going to sell and move up. The problem is when they move up a lot of times, there's still not enough inventory. So they're hesitant to put it on the market because there's nothing for them to jump up to. So I could just encourage everyone, get your home on the market.
Annie, what are you seeing? I know Stephen talked about the residential, the lifestyle, and so did Deirdre, saying that we're doing a lot of work in our homes. We're not glued to the city or glued to an office. So Annie, are you seeing people moving further east, or what neighborhoods are most popular when people reach out to you?
I mean, I think that as a local expert, you also have to be able to advise these buyers at, what's available to them. You know what I mean? Because buyers need to know that, and buyers are so well educated that they know that there's different types of loans that they can get, so it depends on where they're purchasing. As a local expert, you have to know the market, absolutely, but you also have to be able to say, listen, this house is going to need a renovation mortgage. And as a local expert, you also have to be able to know the process of a renovation mortgage. Are they interested in buying a foreclosure? What entails, what kind of stuff do you need to know to tell them to buy a foreclosure? I am seeing a lot of buyers coming in from the city that are interested in purchasing foreclosures or, houses that don't need that much work. But you also have to pay attention to that, and you have to educate yourself as far as numbers, but you also have to be able to guide these buyers to get them to the closing table and assure them that you are familiar with the different types of mortgages available to them, whether they're going conventional, FHA, or whether they're doing a renovation mortgage. As a local expert, which is pretty much what I've been doing, I know the process of a renovation mortgage. So I say to them, listen, you see a house that's priced great, but it looks like because there's a hole in the wall or it's a foreclosure, you are going to need a renovation mortgage. So I'm seeing that a lot of buyers are open to these type of purchases. So that's pretty much what I'm seeing as a local expert too. You have to know the numbers, but you have to know what's available to these buyers as well.
And on the opposite side of that, from the seller's perspective, I think Brian alluded to the standard seller's statement in this environment: get me my price, just get me my price and I'm good. But sellers really have to consider who their buyer is to make sure that they have a strong buyer who is going to qualify. Because that contract that they're walking into Stephen's office with and saying, okay, I'm ready to move into your development, is still a contingent contract until their buyer is approved for their loan. So you want to make sure you're not only getting your price, but that you're getting a buyer who's going to qualify.
Yeah, and Brian, I think for any of your prospective sellers who you talk to who go, I don't know where I'm going to move up to, you have to tell them there's a Beechwood Homes community for them out there.
Yeah, no, that's the biggest thing. I always say to everyone, I've never had a house I can't sell, but I'm always fearful that you're not going to find what you want, and I don't want you to sacrifice. So I always say, do you have somewhere to go in the middle? And I have no room in my house. I have 2 little boys, 2 dogs. So me and my wife can't take on any more people. So we've
got their temporary rental option for them, and we've got their permanent lifestyle retirement community for them.
That's right up my alley.
But seriously, Long Island's housing stock is mostly single family homes that were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe more recently. And we've got this large population of empty nesters, of baby boomers who have been in these homes for decades. And what we service at Beechwood, mostly with our lifestyle communities, are those homeowners who want to stay on Long Island, but want a different lifestyle. They don't want to deal with the maintenance of the single family home anymore. They want their landscaping taken care of for their garbage removal, their snow removal. They don't want to worry about all that. They don't want to have to clean the leaves out of the gutter, but they also want a sense of community, and that's what we provide. And now is a good time for those people who were trapped in their single family homes because they couldn't sell them to put their houses on the market and finally make that move to the place they really want to be and the lifestyle that they want to have for the future.
I think something that everybody always misses, and I'm sure all my panelists will concur on this, is that here in Long Island, even if you get lucky and whatever price you decide, whatever agent you hire moves the property in about a 30-day window, you still have 60 to 90 days for your escrow. So you have some time to jump into a Beechwood, jump into another rental, jump into another house. And when you're moving out of state, a lot of my clients think that New York moves in 30 days, but Joseph will tell you, we sometimes don't even get into contract for 2 or 3 weeks. And by the time they do the survey and title and appraisal. So just the biggest thing I could tell people is understand what the on or about date is. And Joseph will tell everyone what that is, but make sure that you set up your timeline in the right manner, because that is one of the biggest things and the biggest hurdles and roadblocks that buyers and sellers get into in Long Island.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Brian. The on or about closing date that Brian referred to is the date in the contract that specifies this is the date we're looking at to close. but on or about means generally that either party can take it out another 30 days. So we were traditionally looking at a 45-day period for the buyer to obtain a mortgage commitment and an on or about closing date of 60 days from the date the contract is signed. We have been discussing in my office this week, as a matter of fact, extending that 60-day period out so that the on or about closing date is a little bit longer, because transactions are in fact taking that much longer to close.
I want to turn to some of the questions that I've been getting into my inbox here. And the first one's from Stephanie, asking about housing and if you're seeing families that are moving into towns where the school district is higher rated or lower rated than a different school district, taking into consideration what we're seeing with COVID.
Listen, school district drives everything at the end of the day. But I don't see any school districts doing much better than other ones. It's totally across the board. And that's just something that I always see my clients, they ask friends, they ask family, they go on different websites, they go to mom group, dad groups to find out what school district they like. I don't really see a difference in certain districts opposed to other districts, but school district drives price. And that's really how it works. Regardless of what town you say you live in, the school district that the kids go to drives the value of the neighborhood a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Next question, Morgan asks, what is needed to consider a room a bedroom? And I know that has to do with the C of O issue and a window or something like that. So who wants to take that question?
I think that what makes it a bedroom is a closet. The room has to have a closet for it to be considered a bedroom.
A closet and a window.
And a window.
Mm-hmm.
Closet and a window.
And it can't be a window in the basement unless unless you do have approvals for that, and generally it would need to be an escape window, which is a larger window.
Mm-hmm. So you can have a bedroom in a basement, but it needs a larger window and a closet.
And approvals.
Yes.
Not every jurisdiction will allow a bedroom in a basement.
Okay, another question about fixing up the outside of the house versus the inside of the house. What could be more valuable?
You got to have a nice front door. That's your first impression. So you always, I recommend to my clients, either paint, clean, or shine up your front door, because that's the first impression. That's like someone walking right in to meet the house. Landscaping is tremendous.
Or just basically washing the windows. I mean, that can make a huge difference, and even the light in the entire house. They're very inexpensive things to make a house look well-maintained. And that tells the story of a well-maintained home is a home that people perceive as being in better condition.
And I know we were talking about the market and these overall trends. Anonymous asked, is the market strength going to continue to make it harder for younger Long Islanders to stay on Long Island? That had been an issue for a long time. What advice do you have for that segment of the market who don't really want to leave Long Island, but economically they may find it harder to stay? Stephen, yeah.
I think you may see price appreciation because of the strength of the market, but homes are also becoming more affordable because interest rates are so low. So I think that the low interest rates more than offset the appreciation that we've seen so far. So in general, I don't think that situation has gotten any worse over COVID. The other thing I'll say is there's a lot of development in the pipeline and development happening now that's geared towards affordable housing, workforce housing for young Long Islanders to help them stay here.
Agree.
And as we're talking about development, someone asked a specific question about the Belmont racetrack, and with that being developed over there, they want to know how that will impact the value of their home. And that could go for any development project happening in anyone's backyard.
Look, I can tell you from our experience, I don't think, and we've built over 7,000 homes in 65 different communities across Long Island and the outer boroughs over the last 35 years. I can't tell you that any one of our developments has ever negatively impacted the value of homes in the area. If anything, it's been the opposite. And I would expect that the commerce and the development that's brought by the Belmont racetrack and the arena will only help the market in that area.
I agree. I've had the privilege of looking at the plans for that development and the expectations of what it's going to represent. And I think it's only going to improve the community and the values in that area. I think it's well done.
Someone asked, with selling their home, is there an advantage to using a realtor who sells a lot in that community?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, without a doubt. You're hiring a broker is not only your advisor, but also your marketer. And in today's 2020 environment, it's all about marketing and exposure. So you would be putting yourself at a tremendous disadvantage by not hiring a broker, because you need someone to build that buzz, build that excitement, and get it out there to everybody. Because at the end of the day, I say this all the time, Brian Karp doesn't decide what homes sell for. It's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it in the fair market. So you need a top agent or a top broker to get it out to the masses so you could find out exactly what it's really worth.
And an agent to actually be able to guide you and take a look at all these offers and ask the proper questions that a homeowner won't know to ask, as far as financing. Is this buyer really qualified? Get on the phone and find out, the debt to income ratio, the credit scores, and that only comes from an agent. So absolutely, you are supposed to hire a broker.
How long are you seeing this whole process take place between the time someone comes and says to you, I want to sell my home, and the time of engaging with the real estate attorney and making sure everything's up to snuff and the time the contract's signed? How long has that process taken over the last couple of weeks during this hot market?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Short.
2-3 weeks. Quickly. It's a very fast moving market. Everything is moving fairly quickly.
Except when there are environmental conditions. I had a client selling a home in Westbury who called me this week, and she said, I had my buyer all lined up, but then that hurricane came through a couple of weeks ago, and I have trees all over my property at this point, and they were very upset over seeing that, and they walked away.
And you still, I think someone mentioned this earlier, you still have to price it right, and you still have to price it within reason. Just because we're telling you it's a fantastic seller's market and inventory's low and interest rates are free, doesn't mean you could just smack an extra $100K on top of your house. It still has to be priced appropriately. And if it doesn't move in that first 30 days, it's just overpriced.
And I just want to also add, Brian, I think that we all know the trends because we've all lived this many times, maybe not this COVID trend, but in general, a hot market. And inevitably a hot market kills itself. What happens is sellers start to price their properties based on what their neighbor's house is on the market for. And then the next guy goes even higher. And what it does, it kills the market. It stalls the market. So if everyone really wants this market to be sustainable for a longer period of time, pricing properties and continuing to price properties realistically will help keep the market moving. When we have a bunch of overpriced homes, it just stops. The market stalls. People do not step into that. They want to work with sellers that realistically want to sell their house, not someone who says, if you get me X, then I will sell my house. That's not a real seller.
And opposite the high end that you're talking about, Deirdre, I know, Annie, you mentioned foreclosures. Have you seen a rise in foreclosures due to the job losses during COVID?
I mean, for the future, I think we will see more, but the fact that during COVID, renovation mortgages were on hold, that kind of stopped a lot of the, and then we have the memorandum that's on hold till October. So I haven't seen any foreclosures, but we are getting ready for a few to hit the market after the memorandum is over. And now that we have renovation mortgages available back to our buyers. So I haven't seen that. No, I think that we're getting ready for something to come up.
I agree with you 100%. Sky, we have 10%, like this is the dirty secret. There's 10% of people that are in forbearance right now. And
absolutely.
That was a 6-month window they were giving you. And that's going to open up in like October, November. And maybe the banks will give you another 6 months, but we're going to deal with a lot of this come spring 2021, without a doubt. March, April. So that's where you'll see another big piece of inventory put on, because those will be people who maybe didn't get their job back or maybe couldn't catch back up that will decide to liquefy their asset. So, you know, you got to keep an eye on this market. It's always moving.
It's everywhere.
You mentioned the spring. Someone asked, would April of 2021 be a good time to sell? What will the market be like at that time?
I almost think it's funny to even discuss it, because I stood in front of our company in February, and I said 2020 is going to be an amazing year. I mean, we came into this year in such great shape, so much better than even entering 2019. The market had taken off, and little did I know that within 6 weeks we'd be completely closed down for months. So to forecast into next April is something that I don't think I ever want to say this is going to be an amazing year ever again. It's almost like a jinx. But even if we just continue on the same path that we're on now, it suggests that it could be a decent year. But I don't think we can project.
I'm gonna try to forecast it, but I'll probably.
Okay, you go for it, Brian.
I got a 50-50 shot. 50-50 shot. I am slightly bearish on the market in 2021. But what I will say to everybody is that the real estate market, and why I'm so obsessed with it, is it doesn't move quickly. Okay, the real estate market's like a battleship. So I'm driving a battleship in the middle of the ocean, and you're like, Brian, turn the ship. I can't turn it really quickly because I would capsize. So the real estate market will move relatively slowly. Also, the real estate market and the stock market aren't the real economy. They are a fake economy. So although the economy may end up pulling back slightly in 2021, does not always mean the real estate market or the stock market's going to see effect of that. And just keep that in mind.
Now, I know we're wrapping up soon. I do have another question from Melody about buying a house with a low income, or if someone's unemployed, how can you go about buying a house and securing a mortgage and making sure you're able to purchase a home during this time?
What's great, there's for low income families now, we have a down payment assistance program that just opened up, covering the entire town of Brookhaven. So that's something that she can probably look into. If you're unemployed, you won't be able to get a mortgage right now. You have to make sure that you go back to work so you can provide proper pay stubs and get qualified like that. But there are down payment assistance programs available to buyers out there right now. And the application deadline actually expires November 30th.
Okay, so there's time.
There's time.
Well, thank you to our panel. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you to everyone watching. We certainly learned a lot in here. It was chock full of information from all these experts, and we learned to go hire a real estate attorney early in the process and get started and visit a luxury lifestyle community of Beechwood. And to contact Brian or Annie, who are running around Long Island, and Deirdre, who oversees a whole bunch of different agents. And it's an exciting time, and it'll keep changing. So thank you. And this is recorded. Everything here was recorded, and we'll be posting this online through the Herald and across social media. And we hope to see you again soon, and we'll be paying attention to the conversation as it evolves and changes every day.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Nice meeting all of my panel members.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Sky. Take care.
Thank you.